King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet high and 90 feet wide and set it up in the plain of Jura during the area of Babylon. Then he called up the leaders, the governors, the assistant governors, captains of soldiers, judges, rulers, and all other officers of his kingdom. He wanted them to come to the special service for the statue he had set up. So, they all came for the special service and stood in front of the statue that the King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a man who made announcements for the king said in a loud voice, "People, nations, and those of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. When you hear the sound of horns, flutes, lyres, zithers, harps, pipes, and other musical instruments, you must bow down and worship the statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Anyone who doesn't bow down and worship will be immediately thrown into a blazing furnace." Now, people, nations, and those who spoke every language were there, and then they heard the sound of the horns, flutes, and lyres, zithers, and pipes, and all other musical instruments. They bowed down and worshipped the gold statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then some Babylonians came up to the king and began speaking against the men of Judah. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever! O king, you gave a command and that everyone who hears the horns, lyres, zithers, harps, pipes, and all other musical instruments would have to bow down and worship the gold statue. Anyone who wouldn't do this was to be thrown onto a blazing furnace. O king, there are some men of Judah whom you made officers in the area of Babylon that did not pay attention to your order. Their names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They do not serve your gods and do not worship your gold statue you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar became very angry and called for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were brought up to the king. Nebuchadnezzar said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is it true that you do not serve my gods, nor worship the gold statue I have set up? In one moment you will hear again the sounds of horns, flutes, lyres, zithers, harps, pipes, and all other musical instruments. If you bow down and worship the statue, then it will be good. But if you do not worship it, you will be immediately thrown into the blazing furnace. What god will be able to save you from my power then?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, saying, "Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves to you. If you throw us into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from the furnace, but he will not save us from your power, O king. But even if this God does not save us, we want you, O king, to know this. We will not serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he changed his mind. He ordered the furnace to be heated to 7 times hotter than usual, and he commanded some of the strongest soldiers in the army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them in the blazing furnace. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were tied up and thrown into the blazing furnace, still wearing their robes, trousers, and turbans and other clothes. The king's command was very strict, and the furnace was made so hot that the flames killed the strong soldiers who threw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in. Firmly tied, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the blazing furnace. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was so surprised that he jumped to his feet. He asked the men who advised him, didn't we tie up only 3 men and throw them into the fire? They answered, "Oh yes, King." The king said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire. They are not tied up, and they are not burned. The 4th man looks like a son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar went to the opening of the blazing furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, come out, servants of the Most High God, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. When they came out, the governors, assistant governors, captains of the soldiers, and royal advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies. Their hair was not burnt, their robes were not burned, and they didn't even smell like smoke. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their God has sent his angel and saved his servants from their fire. These 3 men trusted their God and refused to obey my command. They were willing to die rather than serve any other person other than their own God. So now I give this command. Anyone from any nation or language who says anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be torn apart and have his house turned up like a pile of stones. No other God can save his people like this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the area of Babylon